A racist worker mocked a black customer in front of everyone, laughing and thinking he was just another nobody. But when he discovered that the man he insulted was actually the CEO of the entire company, what happened next left everyone in the store speechless. It was a typical Friday afternoon at Harper's Electronics, a bustling store in the heart of a small suburban town. Customers wandered through aisles stacked with the latest gadgets, while employees moved about restocking shelves and answering questions. The air buzzed with chatter and the soft hum of background music. Among the employees was Derek, a 30-something worker with a habit of showing off his authority in all the wrong ways. He was known for his sharp tongue, quick temper, and an air of superiority that made both coworkers and customers uneasy. For Derek, today was just another chance to blow off steam by asserting dominance over those he thought were beneath him. Near the entrance, a middle-aged black man walked into the store. He was dressed simply in a plain shirt and jeans, his demeanor calm and unassuming. He scanned the aisles briefly before heading toward the laptop section. His name was Malcolm, but to Derek, he was just another customer, a nobody. As Malcolm browsed, he noticed a sleek, high-performance laptop and bent down to inspect it. Just then, Derek approached, already annoyed. "Hey, don't touch the displays unless you're buying something," Derek snapped, his voice loud enough to draw a few glances from nearby shoppers. Malcolm straightened up and turned toward Derek, his expression remaining calm. "I'm just checking the specs," he replied politely, pointing to the small tag beneath the laptop. But Derek wasn't interested in explanations. He crossed his arms, narrowing his eyes. "Yeah, well, we've had too many people like you in here lately, touching things, wasting time, and walking out without buying anything. So unless you've got cash in hand, maybe you shouldn't waste mine." The insult landed like a slap. Malcolm stood there for a moment, the sting of the words sinking in. He glanced around and saw other customers pretending not to notice. Some looked away awkwardly. Others watched in silence, too stunned or unwilling to intervene. Malcolm took a deep breath, willing himself to stay composed. "I'm not wasting anyone's time," he said evenly, though his voice carried a quiet weight. "I came here to make a purchase." Derek rolled his eyes, his smirk widening as he gestured toward the door. "Sure you did. Maybe you should try the pawn shop down the street. That's probably more your speed." The words hung in the air like poison, thick and suffocating. Malcolm could feel the heat rising in his chest, but instead of lashing out, he simply nodded. "I'll remember that," he said quietly, turning back toward the laptop. Malcolm didn't let the sting of Derek's words show on his face, but inside, emotions churned. He thought about his father's lessons growing up, how dignity came from rising above ignorance. "Never let someone's small mind make you feel small," his father had said. Still, this wasn't easy. Derek, emboldened by Malcolm's silence, decided to double down. He stepped closer, arms crossed, his voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Look, man, I'm just saying the obvious. If you can't afford this stuff, don't waste your time pretending. People like me work hard to keep this place running for paying customers, not freeloaders." Malcolm slowly turned to face Derek, his expression calm but his eyes sharp. "People like you," he repeated, his tone even yet somehow cutting. Derek faltered for a brief second, realizing Malcolm wasn't as passive as he'd assumed. But his smirk returned quickly. "Yeah, you know what I mean," Derek sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. "You don't look like you belong in a place like this." The words hit like a blow, not just to Malcolm but to the quiet witnesses around them. A mother shopping with her teen daughter frowned but remained silent. An older man in a nearby aisle shook his head slightly but didn't step forward. Malcolm caught their expressions in his peripheral vision, but their inaction only strengthened his resolve. Malcolm took a slow breath and stepped forward, standing tall. "You're awfully comfortable making assumptions about me. You don't know who I am or why I'm here," he said, his voice steady but now carrying a distinct edge. The confidence in Malcolm's tone seemed to rattle Derek for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "I don't need to know who you are to see what's obvious." Derek shot back. "You're just another time waster. Honestly, I'm doing you a favor by being real with you." Malcolm chuckled softly, the sound low and deliberate. It wasn't the reaction Derek expected. A favor. Huh. Interesting way to put it, Malcolm said. He crossed his arms, mimicking Derek's earlier stance, but his demeanor remained calm and controlled. So let's see if you're really good at reading people. Take a guess. What do you think I do for a living? Derek narrowed his eyes, unsure where this was going but unwilling to back down. Let me guess. You probably work some low-paying job, maybe a janitor, or you drive for one of those delivery apps, he said with a sneer. Malcolm's lips curled into a faint smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. That's quite the imagination you've got there, he said, his voice carrying a subtle strength that unnerved Derek. But let me ask you this, do you treat all your customers this way? Or is it just me you've decided doesn't belong? Derek bristled at the challenge in Malcolm's words but shrugged. Hey, don't take it personally. I call it like I see it. Just as Derek finished speaking, a coworker walked over. Her name tag read Lisa, and her face was flushed with embarrassment as she glanced nervously between the two men. Derek, she whispered urgently, you should stop. Relax. Lisa, Derek replied with a dismissive wave. I've got this handled. But Lisa didn't back down. She turned to Malcolm, her tone apologetic. I'm so sorry. Sir, please let me know if I can help you with anything. Malcolm met her gaze and offered a polite nod. Thank you, he said simply. Derek scoffed. Why are you apologizing? He's not buying anything, he muttered under his breath. Malcolm's patience was thinning, but he stayed composed. You're right about one thing, Derek, he said, his voice calm but now carrying unmistakable authority. This situation will absolutely be handled. The room seemed to freeze as Malcolm's words lingered in the air. Derek raised an eyebrow, confused by the confidence in Malcolm's tone, but still too arrogant to back down. Yeah, we'll see about that, Derek muttered, brushing past Malcolm. Malcolm turned his attention to Lisa. I appreciate your help. I'll let you know if I need anything further, he said, his tone kind but purposeful. Lisa nodded, relief and gratitude flickering across her face. As Malcolm walked away toward another section of the store, Derek smirked, convinced he'd won the exchange. What he didn't realize was that the tables were about to turn in a way he never saw coming. Malcolm moved to another aisle, appearing calm on the surface, but his mind churned with thoughts about the encounter. He wasn't angry for himself. He'd dealt with people like Derek before. But he couldn't stop thinking about the message Derek's behavior sent to everyone who witnessed it. It wasn't just about him. It was about how people like Derek felt entitled to disrespect others without consequence. As he browsed the laptops in the next aisle, Malcolm pulled out his phone and made a quick call. His voice was calm, but the subtle authority in his tone hinted at his true identity. Yes, it's me. I'm at Harper's Electronics on Maple. Can you prepare the store manager's file and meet me here? Thank you. He hung up, slipping the phone back into his pocket, his expression unreadable. Meanwhile, Derek stood behind the counter, grinning smugly as he recounted the encounter to another employee. You should have seen the look on his face, he said, chuckling. I mean, come on. He probably couldn't afford anything in here anyway. Lisa, who was standing nearby, frowned. Derek, you don't know anything about him. That wasn't right, she said, her voice firm. Derek rolled his eyes. Oh, give me a break. Lisa, it's not like I said anything that wasn't true. People like him? Lisa snapped, her voice louder now, startling a few customers. Do you hear yourself? You're embarrassing this store. But Derek wasn't listening. He waved her off and turned his attention to a line of customers waiting to check out. Relax. Lisa, go organize something if you're so bothered. A few minutes later, Malcolm returned to the main floor, his quiet presence drawing little attention. He stopped near the entrance, where a tall man in a suit was walking in. The man carried a leather briefcase and looked slightly out of place in the casual electronics store. Malcolm greeted him with a brief handshake and a quiet exchange that no one else could hear. The suited man nodded and walked toward the customer service desk, where Derek was now helping a customer. He leaned over the counter and asked, Can you call the store manager for me, please? I need to have a word with him. Derek looked up, confused but unfazed. Uh, sure. What's this about? The man gave him a tight smile. You'll find out soon enough. Derek shrugged and picked up the store phone, paging the manager. Lisa, sensing something unusual, watched the scene unfold from a distance. The store manager, a stocky man named Carl, soon appeared, looking slightly flustered. What's going on? He asked, addressing the suited man. Good afternoon, the man said politely. I'm here with Mr. Malcolm Hayes. He's requested a formal review of your store and your staff's conduct. I trust you're aware of who he is. Carl's face paled as he turned to look at Malcolm, who was now standing calmly a few feet away. Recognition dawned, and his mouth fell open. Mr. Hayes, he stammered, his voice cracking. I didn't realize you were here today. Derek's smirk disappeared as he glanced between the manager and Malcolm, confusion turning to unease. Wait, what? What's going on? He asked, his voice no longer cocky. Lisa froze, her eyes widening as the pieces clicked into place. Carl turned to Derek, his expression a mix of panic and anger. This is Malcolm Hayes, he said slowly, enunciating each word. He's the CEO of the company. The words hit Derek like a freight train. His eyes widened, and all the color drained from his face. Wait, what? Him? He stammered, pointing a shaky finger at Malcolm. Malcolm stepped forward, his presence commanding but his tone measured. Yes, Derek. Me, he said. His gaze was calm, but his words carried the weight of authority. The nobody you insulted earlier is the CEO of the company you work for. The store fell silent as Malcolm stood before Derek, his calm demeanor in eerie contrast to the chaos unraveling inside Derek's mind. Customers pretended to browse but stole glances, their curiosity drawn to the unfolding drama. Derek's bravado was gone. His usual smirk had been replaced by panic as he stammered. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know who you were. Malcolm raised a hand, signaling Derek to stop. That's the problem. Derek, he said, his voice steady but unyielding. You didn't know who I was, and yet you thought it was acceptable to treat me, or anyone, like that. Derek opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. His mind raced for excuses, but the weight of the moment left him paralyzed. Malcolm turned to Carl, the store manager. Is this the standard of customer service at Harper's Electronics? He asked, his tone measured but cutting. Because if it is, we have a much bigger problem than just one employee. Carl's face reddened. Mr. Hayes, I assure you this is not how we train our staff. Derek's behavior doesn't reflect our values, he stammered, casting a furious glare at Derek. I'll handle this immediately. Malcolm held up a hand to silence him. This isn't just about handling it, Carl. This is about accountability. He turned his gaze back to Derek, who was now fidgeting, unable to meet Malcolm's eyes. You thought I was a nobody, Malcolm said, his voice low but powerful. Someone not worth your time or respect. You assumed, judged, and insulted me, all because of how I look. That kind of behavior doesn't just hurt me. It hurts this company and everyone associated with it. Derek's face was ashen. I didn't mean, he began, but Malcolm cut him off. You didn't mean what, Derek? Malcolm asked, stepping closer. You didn't mean to humiliate me? You didn't mean to judge me? Or do you mean you didn't expect to face the consequences of your actions? Derek shrank back, his words faltering. I was just joking. I didn't think it was serious. Malcolm's eyes hardened. Joking? Do you think it's a joke to belittle someone based on their appearance? To mock them in front of others? Let me be clear. Derek, this isn't a joke. It's a failure of character, and it has no place in my company. Malcolm turned to Carl. I expect a full report on the culture in this store, starting with how employees like Derek are trained. If this is the environment you've allowed to fester, then you bear responsibility too. Carl nodded quickly, his face pale. Yes, sir. I'll begin immediately. Malcolm glanced around the store, addressing not just the staff but the lingering customers. Let this be a reminder. No one is a nobody. Every person who walks through these doors deserves respect. That's the standard I expect at Harper's Electronics.